The Gospel according to St. John says these words. In order to fulfill the scripture, Jesus said, I am thirsty. I want to preach this afternoon from the topic, the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world. Beloved, I was raised by my grandparents the old school way, and we didn't stay up all night on Snapchat or Facebook Live. We had bedtimes and curfews. But there was always one occasion when my grandmother would permit me to stay up late, and that was to watch the heavyweight boxing championships with my grandfather. During one fight, my grandfather had a pretty confident gentleman's wager on a black boxer. And from the first bell, the black boxer was winning. But on the last round of the match, the opposing Latino boxer, who looked totally beaten up and bloody, took a time out and went into the corner of the ring. When the Latino boxer got into his corner, he had one man pouring liquid down his throat. But there was also another man whispering in his left ear. And this man had strange-looking hair, 6 gold necklaces around his neck, 8 diamond rings, and an American flag print scarf around his neck. And when my grandfather saw the Latino boxer talking to this man with strange hair, my grandfather picked up the phone and changed who he was wagering his money on from the black boxer to the Latino boxer. I looked up and said, Daddy, why are you switching from the black boxer to the bruised and bloody Latino boxer? And who is that strange man talking to him with that weird hair and jewelry all over the place? To which Daddy responded, son, that man's name is Don King, and he rigs fights. And I can tell by the way that the Latino boxer is trusting Don King's instructions that this match is about to be staged. And lo and behold, Daddy was right. The Latino brother won, and Daddy believed it was only because of who was backing him. Daddy was trying to teach me 2 lessons. Number 1, drinking Gatorade when you're in a fight is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of awareness and intentionality. But then the next thing Papa was trying to teach me is that when you are watching a boxing match that Don King is promoting, almost every seemingly insignificant exchange is a clue to a pre-planned outcome. And likewise, the Gospel of St. John, where this 5th word is found, almost every seemingly insignificant thing in the Gospel of John is a clue to the deeper meanings of Jesus' life and his death. And beloved, this brings us to an interesting conundrum that is before us in interpreting this text. Here we are at a 7 last word service, which is designed to put the passion of Christ on grand homiletical display or competition for your liturgical titillation. And now don't get me wrong, while these types of services are quite enjoyable and fun to us as preachers and hopefully beneficial to your spiritual growth and not just your ears, these types of services often mislead preachers and parishioners into believing that every gospel writer's record of the crucifixion has Jesus saying all 7 sayings every time. But the truth is that each writer's depiction is unique and intentional in its sayings that it attributes to the Christ figure. Just bear with me a moment. A more accurate way to approach these 7 last sayings is for us as preachers to remind you that the authors of our specific words picked and chose these sayings to prove specific points for specific reasons. And that's important. That's important to understand because these gospel writers are writing from different vantage points about the same event. Let me say it like this. For instance, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, when Jesus is sent to be crucified, he's unable to carry his own cross. He's weak in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But in the Gospel of John, John said Jesus ain't need no help. He carried the cross all by himself. In John, Jesus is not even arrested in the ordinary sense of the word, but he gives himself up voluntarily to be arrested. In other words, I'm running this show. I wish I had a witness here. Jesus is, so to speak, the stage manager of his own arrest and passion play. Unlike in Mark and Matthew, where Jesus is depicted as having felt deserted by God and crying out, "Why did you forsake me?" like a child, in John's gospel, the physical pain of the crucified Christ has no voice at all. There is no cry or dying screams. Jesus' death in St. John isn't an agonizing moment for Jesus. Instead, it's an opportunity to live out the word. I wish I had a witness here. The beaten and crucified Christ only speaks to either reveal that he's unbothered by what Pilate thinks he's doing, or specifically to bring to pass the prophecies. Like an intentional cosmic conspirator working with God to bring about the greatest revolution of love to ever hit the world. Among the 7 last statements of Jesus recorded in the Gospels, at first glance, "I am thirsty," seems almost insignificant and out of place amongst the other cries. Yet, like a Don King fight, there's more in the text. There's more in this match than what meets the eye. Many have argued that the only reason that Jesus stated these words about being thirsty is because of the physical demands that the crucifixion had placed on his body. But while there were good physical reasons why Jesus was thirsty, John reports that Jesus announced that his thirst had overt theological reasons. John's Jesus is fulfilling the mission, and the moment of thirst in verse 28 is not a haphazard statement, but a deliberate act at the end of the play. The author tells us that the reason that Jesus said he was thirsty wasn't because he was physically thirsty, but it was because he was spiritually thirsty. It was our salvation that he was thirsty for. It's like the woman at the well who Jesus said, "I'm thirsty." He wasn't talking about physical water. He was talking about that water that when you taste it, you'll never thirst again. I wonder, do I have any drinkers in the house this morning? I ain't talking about Alizé, I'm talking about Jesus. My time is running. Hold on. Beloved brothers and sisters, humans thirst for water, but gods like Jesus thirst for humanity to be respectful to one another. God is thirsty for us to love one another. Jesus was thirsty for souls, not like the rest of these preachers, thirsty for love offerings, Instagram followers, a microphone, and a platform. I don't know about you, but I hear Jesus saying, "I can't wait for my body to be thirsty again." Many of us are so filled with the worldly wines of greed, selfishness, isms, and phobias, and religious indoctrination that we aren't thirsty anymore. Tap somebody next to you and tell them, "Honey, you need to get thirsty." So thirsty for righteousness and justice that you will do whatever it takes to answer the call of God. So thirst was not a sign of weakness, but it was a sign of strength and consciousness. And I've got to leave you, beloved brothers and sisters, when I leave you with this final story. You've got to understand that when God is your promoter, the enemy can try to fight you, but the match is already over. When God is on your side, I wish I had a witness here. I hear Jesus saying, "Satan, you tried to knock out my message on the cross with nails and spears. But what you didn't realize is that in the process, you disqualified yourself when you broke my skin and blood came out. Let me explain it like this. One of the most memorable fights that I've ever watched was an infamous fight referred to as the bite fight. In the fight, Mike Tyson began the third round with a furious attack. And within 40 seconds remaining in the round, Holyfield got Tyson in a clinch. And Tyson rolled his neck above Holyfield's shoulder and took a big chunk out of Holyfield's right ear. Holyfield started shrieking in pain and running around in circles. But then 25 minutes later, when Holyfield was in the corner of the ring getting some Gatorade, the announcer announced these words: "Ladies and gentlemen, the referees in charge have disqualified Mike Tyson from the match for biting Evander Holyfield in the ears because of the abuse and because of the shedding of Holyfield's blood. The winner by disqualification is Evander Holyfield." And I wonder, is there anybody here that can testify that the devil should have killed Jesus when he had a chance, but he made a mistake and blood came out? Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other bounce I know. Look at somebody and say, nothing but the blood. He's the heavyweight champion. If you believe it, say it.